From New Year's to Christmas and everything in between, our country's heritage and culture shine through our federal holidays. However, there is one day when our nation celebrates an atrocious human being, comparable to Hitler himself, a man responsible for the slaughtering millions of innocent lives. Falling on the second Monday of October is America's worst holiday, but you probably know it better as Columbus Day. Now you may be wondering why I'm railing against something as seemingly insignificant like Columbus Day. However, after I expose you to the dark truths hiding behind the adventurer, I'm sure you'll be against him too. Columbus can't be that bad though, can he? After all, we were taught as children that Columbus is a courageous explorer, responsible for discovering the land that we live in today, right? Wrong. Technically speaking, he did nothing of the sort. Far too many people don't fully understand the underlying racism and discrimination memorialized by the holiday. In order to right the wrongs of Columbus, or at least take steps towards reconciliation, I believe the holiday should be replaced by Indigenous Peoples Day. Multiple states and cities have already decided to change the second Monday of October to a celebration of the Native people of our country, a move that is much more appropriate than celebrating a man as vile as Columbus. Columbus Day is a terrible holiday that should be replaced because of its offensive nature that demeans the indigenous people of America. The fact that Columbus Day is still being celebrated as a national holiday is a horrific problem due to the delusions surrounding the so-called heroic explorer. First off, Columbus is most widely credited for discovering America when he isn't remotely responsible. According to History.com, his ships arrived in the Bahamas, where 54 million people already lived. In 3 other trips back to the New World, Columbus never came near to America's mainland. Also, despite these separate trips to the New World, Columbus believed he was really visiting Asia and mistook Native Americans for Indians. Columbus didn't even discover the New World for Europe. According to the Washington Post, Leif Erikson and the Vikings had already set foot in Canada before Columbus, beating him by about 500 years. But enough about technicalities. I think it's more important to focus on his villainous actions against indigenous people to prove why celebrating his legacy is ultimately sickening. For one thing, Columbus was a slavery enthusiast. Soon after landing in the Bahamas, he recorded his first impression of the friendly natives, writing that they would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. Furthermore, as appointed governor of the Indies, he used violent tactics to suppress any unrest from the natives, to convert them to Christianity against their will. According to HuffingtonPost.com, Columbus would order the hands, ears, or noses to be cut off anyone who didn't comply. In addition, according to UnderstandingPrejudice.org, he encouraged the rape of young girls and told his men to use the corpses of rebel natives as food for their hunting dogs. These alarming facts bring up one question to mind. How was this serial psychopathic killer put into a leadership position? And why is he still being celebrated today? If slavery, torture, and rape isn't enough, Columbus and his crew exposed the native populations to foreign diseases that they had no immunity to, causing further death and devastation. BusinessInsider.com states that a staggering 95% of the indigenous population was wiped out, all at the hands of Columbus. Out of all of this, the most significant point is that the holiday is offensive and degrading to natives, whose heritage and culture are already stepped upon. Instead of further tarnishing their culture, this is a perfect opportunity to turn an insulting holiday into one of reconciliation and recognition for people who genuinely deserve it. The best way to rid America of the horrendous legacy that Columbus has left behind is to replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day. So how did this holiday originate? According to CNN.com, in 1991, numerous activists in California convinced Berkeley city officials to replace Columbus Day with a day of solidarity with indigenous people. Since then, many states such as South Dakota, Hawaii, and Alabama, and at least 26 cities as of last year have joined. You may be thinking, why should it be replaced specifically by Indigenous Peoples Day? If you remember from earlier, 95% of the native people were killed as a direct result of Columbus's voyages. 95%. This inconceivable number doesn't just represent a mass murder. It represents a literal extermination of a society. In addition, Native Americans have been disrespected in America's history a countless number of times, not just by Columbus. From the devastating Trail of Tears, to forcing them onto reservations, to spreading oppressive white imperialism, America's government certainly owes Native people much more than they receive. Replacing Columbus Day with this holiday would fix the problems associated with celebrating Columbus. Instead of applauding a pathetic excuse for a human being, America would commemorate the very people who were wronged by Columbus's actions. Columbus Day is a terrible holiday that should be replaced because of its offensive nature that demeans the indigenous people of America. It's a serious problem that we celebrate Columbus with a federal holiday. He was an ungodly man who supported slavery, torture, and rape. Columbus committed genocide against the native people he met, and yet our country celebrates this man on a federal scale. The best solution for America is to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, a holiday that commemorates the original inhabitants of our land and provides an appropriate stepping stone to begin repairing the shameful offenses of the past and rebuilding bridges for the future. Now that you know the full story surrounding Columbus, it's time that Americans face the facts and replace a disgrace to our country. Clarence Darrow put it best: "As long as the world shall last, there will be wrongs. And if no man objected and no man rebelled, these wrongs will last forever."